What up, YouTube? This is Steven, and I ran across this article like a while back, actually, like years ago. And in the article, I read something that was extremely interesting to me and something that I didn't really think about until I read the article. All right, what I read basically was kind of like about, or at least this article in part touched on departmental hierarchies within um, the Spanish language departments slash modern language departments, world language departments, foreign language departments, etc. You know. For me, in this particular video, I'll be concentrating on specifically the hierarchy as it pertains to the Spanish language and the professors who teach the Spanish language. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to read a section from the article, and overall, the entire section is about more or less 4 paragraphs worth, and I'll read a section and give my thoughts and opinions as I go, and as well give my thoughts and opinions after reading. The title of this article is Language Ideology, the Case of Spanish in Departments of Foreign Languages, and has 4 different authors. First author, Guadalupe VALDES. Next, Sonia V. Gonzalez. Next, DANIA LOPEZ GARCIA. And last, PATRICIO MARQUEZ. And let me begin. All right, so the title of this particular section is The Case of Spanish Language Departments, Language Proficiencies, and Departmental Hierarchies. All right, within departments of Spanish, status and power among both faculty and students reflect both native and non-native ability, as well as other characteristics such as regional origin, ethnicity, and class. So let me break that down. All right. Basically, within Spanish language departments or departments that, modern language departments that have Spanish, there's status and power, both between, the teachers, the professors and the students. And this, their status is based on being a native speaker or non-native speaker, as well as based on their place of origin or, country of origin, be from Spain, Argentina, Mexico, Puerto Rico, or any, depending on what Spanish-speaking country you come from, as well as your ethnicity slash race plays a part in it too. As ethnicity and race plays a part in a lot of different things, and as well as class. I'm just a little surprised by the class, but yeah, I guess class plays a part in it too. But I guess so, yeah. Because language is associated with class. So yeah, I guess so. And, I didn't really take this into consideration in, the Spanish department the modern language department that my school had, and that, I was taking classes from, the teachers and professors that I was taking classes from. All right, next. In most departments, the faculty is made up of primarily of individuals from 2 very different backgrounds: native speakers of Spanish raised in Spain or Latin America, and Americans who acquired Spanish as a foreign language. All right, that is true. There are, the native speakers and the non-native speakers. And the native speakers, of course, they learned the language. They grew up in the culture, learned the language as they grew up, through education and just through the media and their family, just living in a Spanish-speaking country. While the non-natives, they learned the language, probably they were introduced to the Spanish language in class, They probably took a class, really liked the language, and continue to pursue it, and possibly even may have studied abroad as well, or even lived abroad as well. And that is a factor when it comes to kind of like your status, position, and power within the Spanish, Spanish language department / modern language department. All right. Next, members of Spanish departments occupy different rungs in the departmental hierarchy depending on their distinction within their area of specialization, as well as their regional and national origin. Again, I guess depending on their specialization, so if they specialize in literature versus linguistics, versus like maybe culture, that plays a part in their status within the department as well. Also, their regional and national origin. So they could come from, say, Spain. That would be a plus, definitely. But if they come from the south of Spain, it might not be so much of a plus as if they came from North Spain, like the northern part of Spain. Let's see. Next, as VALDES points out in examining the construct of near native speaking ability, issues in native ability, language, ethnicity, and class are quite complex in American departments of foreign languages. So yeah, that is a very complicated thing to deal with because you're dealing with language, ethnicity, class, and as well as native speaking ability. So those are all complex ideas that you have to deal with. Next, field of specialization, membership in particular departmental factions, academic distinctions, and language characteristics interact in numerous ways in different departments. Of course, although in general, it is the case that speakers of Peninsular Spanish, aka the Spanish from Spain, have higher prestige than the speakers of Latin American Spanish, particularly varieties of both Peninsular and Latin American Spanish are more highly regarded than others. That is true. Kind of like Spain would be kind of like at the top, and then a little below it would be kind of like, basically, unfortunately, like populations that have higher percentages of Caucasian people, like say Argentina, or Chile, or Uruguay. They'll probably be more so at the top. And unfortunately, it's just a reflection of our society and how people view certain people within our society. Kind of like just, kind of like, I would say maybe sort of like white supremacy / white privilege, maybe. Let's see. Next, the Spanish of Andalusia, for example, is considered by many to be less prestigious than that of Madrid. That's where that whole like north and south thing of Spain can come into play. Although Madrid is sort of in the middle, but still. Let's see. And Caribbean varieties of Spanish are often ranked below those of other areas of Latin America. And again, like in my particular modern language department, I did see like the two teachers that did, like they came from, say, Puerto Rico. The two teachers that spoke the Caribbean variety of Spanish, they were both from Puerto Rico, and they did sort of seem like they were getting like, kind of like they were teaching the lower level classes, while like the people who were teaching higher level classes were either like probably more so the people, I know the non-natives were one Chilean, one Spaniard, and two Mexican people when I was there. And there may be some other people, because I didn't take classes from every single Spanish teacher or Spanish professor, so I'm not familiar with all of them, but definitely it's kind of like the higher up you get on the scale, the more white it gets, you know, unfortunately. And again, it's a reflection of our society, you know. Let's see. Next, in all 5 institutions with which we have been affiliated, the Spanish of ethnic minority speakers, example given, second, third, or even fourth generation members of immigrant families, was least valued. So basically, like, heritage speakers who speak Spanish, their Spanish doesn't seem as valued, or in fact, it would seem the least valued Spanish. You know, the heritage speakers of Spanish. Let's see. In a number of departments, the more English-influenced Spanish of non-native speakers was viewed as a more desirable model for language instruction than that of U.S. Latinos. So pretty much it's like the non-native speakers of Spanish, they were kind of seen as more desirable when it came to like being teachers than the people who kind of spoke like a U.S. Latino variety of Spanish, you know, like the heritage speakers speak. And for me, that's a little strange to hear that, because usually I always feel like kind of like the heritage speaker would sort of have a leg up on the non-native speaker, which I feel like it kind of is like that, you know, because they may not have been exposed to the language through like their society, but they were exposed to the language through their family, while the non-native speaker was exposed to the language through school. But that may have something to do with, I'm not sure if they're going to touch on this or not, so I'll mention it now, but it may have something to do with just kind of like some people's belief that the Spanish spoken by heritage speakers and, you know, third, fourth generational people or second, what have you, viewing it as sort of like maybe like defective, for lack of a better word, like defective Spanish, like they're not speaking it correctly, and they don't want to, they feel like, okay, you would have to kind of like unlearn some things and then learn some more things, while the non-native speaker is just coming with a clean slate totally, you know. Perhaps that's their way of viewing it. Let's see. The next part of this article is judgments made within Spanish departments about both the best Spanish and inferior Spanish were related to the group in power within a particular department, as well as to views concerning peninsular and Latin American varieties of Spanish that are widely held in Spain and Latin America. So people have, in the departments, people have their views of what is considered the best Spanish and what is considered inferior Spanish, and it is based on who is in power within that department, like who has the power and the status within that department to sort of dictate that. Let's see. Next, some individuals suggest that in addition to structures of power within departments and wider views about good Spanish, the political status of countries where the different varieties of Spanish are spoken directly influences the status of Spanish speakers in the United States and within departments of Spanish. So basically, they're saying that the status, like say you speak Spanish, you know, the Spanish of, say, Mexico. Mexico's status within the world will be kind of like taken into account when they're talking about good and bad Spanish, like kind of like how people view Mexico would be taken into consideration when it comes to, you know, Spanish that is good and Spanish that is bad. Same thing with all countries, like, oh, since, you know, Spain has such a very prestigious reputation, they will all, like, they're going to always seem to it seems like they'll always view, the Spanish of Spain as being really good, even though you're in the U.S. and the more practical form of Spanish to speak would be Mexican Spanish, But within some departmental hierarchies or some departments of language, it is viewed like that, depending on who's in power, who's in charge. Let's see. Next. Although research has not been conducted on the relationship between language attitudes within language departments in the broader socio-political context and power structures in this country, this argument holds that speakers of Spanish from Spain and from countries with more European descendant populations, aka white people, Chile, Argentina, and possibly Uruguay, and as well maybe some other countries as well, are ranked more highly than speakers from countries where there are larger indigenous populations, like, say, Mexico or Peru. In countries in which there are many descendants of African origin peoples, Caribbean countries, Colombia, Venezuela, this perspective argues that Chicanos and U.S. Latinos of Puerto Rican origin are located on the lowest rung of departmental hierarchies because of the political subordinate positions of these speakers' countries of origin. So let me break that all down for you. Like I mentioned previously in the video, if you're coming from a population, Spanish-speaking country that has a large white population, like, say, Spain, say, Argentina, Chile, possibly Uruguay, your Spanish or that Spanish will be viewed as more highly desired or more desirable than Spanish from, say, Mexico or Peru, because they have a population that is more indigenous. So as well, Guatemala has an indigenous population as well, or a very strong indigenous population. So it's kind of like this hierarchy. So you got white people up here, then you have the indigenous people here, and then come into play African people or African people of African origin. Let's see, countries where there are many descendants of African origin people, like, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Cuba, Colombia, Venezuela. Like, it seems like those particular varieties, at least to me, I feel like Colombia and Venezuela would be viewed as sort of higher than Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and Cuba in terms of their status within this situation. But yeah, it seems like, the Caribbean varieties are viewed sort of lower. So it's like you got the white variety of Spanish here, then let's see, you got the indigenous Spanish here, and then you have the African influenced Spanish here. And then after those three, you have at the lowest rung the Spanish of Chicanos and U.S. Latinos of Puerto Rican origin, located at the lowest rung of the departmental hierarchies because of the political subordinate positions of these speakers' countries of origin. So basically, because these people are sort of like, well, I want to say these people, but like Puerto Rico, I guess, is considered not to be politically powerful, as well as Chicanos are not considered to be politically powerful. So their Spanish is located at the lowest rung. And as well, probably being people of color or being associated as people of color, being considered brown people, plays a factor in that as well. So really, it's kind of like racism and white privilege. Well, racism and white supremacy, rather, sort of being played out in the departments, language departments, which ultimately is a reflection of just society in general, because people in society sort of do view it as like, white people here, indigenous people here, black people here, it's sort of viewed like that. And I think I pretty much reached the end of the particular section that I wanted to share with you guys. And this, you know, article is extremely interesting. It's an academic article. It's published in an academic journal. Um, let's see. This article was published in the Anthropology and Education Quarterly Academic Journal, volume 34, issue 1. And the article spans from page 3 to page 26. And I believe it was published around 2003. So yeah, this is a very interesting article, and it speaks on a lot of different things within the Spanish language, well, not community, but I guess within issues like the Spanish language of the foreign language departments, you know, because this article is the case of Spanish in departments of foreign languages. So they speak on like the teachers and also the students, where it's like the same hierarchy that I spoke about in this video. It plays out when it comes to graduate students as well, and the departments accepting them. So like the departments may favor more so graduate students or potential graduate students from, say, Spain, Argentina, Chile, possibly Uruguay as well, because of this belief that their Spanish is better because they speak a Spanish that is more so Caucasian influence, you know? And ultimately it just speaks to just kind of like white privilege or white supremacy, unfortunately. And unfortunately, that's not a surprise, you know? It's not a surprise that these views will sort of play out, because these are the views that are playing out within society as a whole. So really it's just a reflection of society as a whole, and as well as a reflection of people's power within society, because these populations, you know, these countries like Spain, Argentina, Chile, possibly Uruguay, you know, do have more power within the Spanish-speaking hemisphere or the Spanish-speaking world than, say, countries, say, like Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic or Cuba. But for me personally, I think that, you know, well, before I get on that, I say like this article also touches on, let's see what else this article is about. Kind of like how Spanish is viewed in the United States as well, just in general. It also touches on kind of like teachers as well. Like some teachers are tenure track teachers, some teachers are not tenure track teachers. You know, teachers who teach certain courses and those who don't teach other courses, because of, again, this whole hierarchy situation. And let's see, what I was going to speak on is that for me personally, I feel like while, you know, I have no issues with the Spanish of Spain, no like really like issues that probably would be considered, I guess, bigoted. But I feel like me being in the United States, my particular variety of Spanish that would be more practical for me to learn would be Mexican Spanish, you know. If you lived in Europe, I would say that the more practical Spanish to learn would be Peninsular Spanish, or, you know, Spanish of Spain. And also, me taking a look at my own modern language department that I, you know, kind of like when I attended my college, you know, my university, so to speak. Some people call it university, some people call it college. But yeah, taking a look at the modern language department of my university, I was like, like once reading this article, I was like, it did sort of kind of play out like that, because like the non-native speakers did occupy sort of a high rung in the department, and partly because they were educated in Spain. Also, well, let me jump back right quick. In regards to the graduate students and their acceptance into universities, the non-native speakers who are graduate students, they are kind of judged on similar criteria as the graduate students who are native speakers. Like if you are a non-native speaker who spent a lot of time in Spain or maybe in Argentina or Chile, your application would be considered more favorable than a non-native speaker who did not spend more time in a population with a high white population, or population with a country with a high white population, But speaking on that, let me jump back forward to the teachers in my department. The three non-native speaking teachers, they were educated or spent some time in Spain, and I think that sort of helped them gain some status and power within the department. On the higher rungs, I did see like a Chilean person and a Spaniard, and we only had one Spaniard when I was there, and I don't think it's changed since then. And she did seem to occupy a high position within the department. I think she may be even like the chairwoman of the department, perhaps. And also, the non-native speaker who spent time in Spain, who I took a class from, he is like the graduate. He is the graduate advisor, I believe. I think that's what you call it. But he's the person who sort of looks at the applications that come into the department as well. But one more thing I want to touch on is the speakers of the Caribbean variety of Spanish. Within my department, there were two. At the time I attended, there were two. And I noticed that, they did sort of teach like the lower classes, kind of like the 101s, the 102s, the 201s, the 202 type of classes, versus like the 300s, the 400s, the 600s, 800s, 700s, versus the higher level undergrad classes and the graduate courses. They did not teach those, they didn't teach those. They taught the introductory courses, the 1000 level and the 2000 level classes. And I didn't understand it at the time, but now I since reading this article, it sort of makes a bit more sense to me now. Like, okay, I understand a bit more now. And one teacher, he wound up leaving the university. I'm not sure why. It's a lot of reasons why people leave their jobs. It could play a part in it. It could not play a part in it. I'm not sure. But I think I've said all I have to say for the time being. I didn't mean to go on for as long as I have, but I just had some things to say. So thanks a lot for watching. I know this video was probably not the most cohesive and coherent and the most organized, but thanks a lot for watching. I hope you got something out of it. And as well, definitely, take a look at the article. You might find it really interesting. All right. But again, thanks a lot for watching. Feel free to comment, subscribe, thumbs up. That's always appreciated and valued. Until the next video, adios and goodbye for now.